It's another down-to-the-wire win for the Kansas City Chiefs as they cut it close in a sloppy performance against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. And I feel like what we've grown accustomed to over the last year and some change at this point with the Chiefs. Very weird win. I felt weird going into it. I just felt like it was going to be one of those games where not everything was going to click. And it really was that, and then some a little bit. A weird interception by Patrick Mahomes. I feel like that's, at least the third one. He's had three, I feel like, pretty bad interceptions. Cam Taylor-Britt made a great play on that interception. I feel like there was one other one against the Bengals. I can't remember exactly what happened off the top of my head, but the one on opening night that Mahomes threw, that was pretty rough. So it's kind of become a trend at this point. So we're 3 games in and starting to maybe see a little bit of a trend with that. And, we've seen it before. Mahomes just kind of has to get settled in, I think, to the season and with the way the offense is, because it's so different from when he first started with the Chiefs in the league back in 2018 with that I almost said rookie season, but his first season starting. So I don't know. Right now, he was off altogether tonight. There's a lot of late throws, kind of weird timing, throwing behind guys. There was almost an interception off of a tipped ball from Rashee Rice, and that one was thrown behind Rashee Rice. Wasn't able to make a play. Almost ended up being a big-time interception for the Falcons. So, a close game, again, 22-17. Chiefs do get the win. They remain undefeated, 3-0. And after the game, I heard Mitch Holthus say 75% of the time, a 3-0 team will go on to win the division. So, that is the first step in going for this three-peat, is win the AFC West. And then everything else will fall in the line. Next week will be the Los Angeles Chargers on the road at LA, so that is a big-time division matchup and the first one of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I feel like, we'll see what happens with Herbert. Justin Herbert has been hurt earlier in the Sunday afternoon window. I think it was – no, they played the 12 o'clock, so it was the 12 o'clock game. Justin Herbert went down against the Pittsburgh Steelers in that game. So we'll see what happens. Seems like he's kind of been injury-prone these last couple of years, and Herbert kind of turned into a what-if for multiple reasons. But we will see the Chargers next week against the Chiefs on the road. The Chiefs seem to perform pretty well in SoFi Stadium, so hopefully that trend continues and they kind of clean up some of the mess. I don't think there's any need to worry right now, just as a general thought right after this game. Recording this now, it's been maybe an hour and a half since the game ended, so I thought about doing another live stream. Let me know in the comments below if anybody tuned in or enjoyed the halftime live stream I did on YouTube, and I do plan maybe to get more into that and having more live streams, maybe post-game, maybe pre-game, halftime, post-game kind of deal. We'll see where it goes, but it's been a little bit since I have done a podcast. Took a couple weeks off, just a whole lot going on, and I'm happy to be back and talking Chiefs football. So we've got a little bit to kind of go over. I feel like at least I'm going to touch on the Bengals game later on in the episode and talk a little bit about that. I actually did talk about the Ravens game. That was over on Vaca's podcast with Up in the Air podcast. So I will leave that link down in the description below. Go check that out over on YouTube. Doing a pretty cool podcast, just kind of interviewing, centered around the aviation industry and interviewing different minds in the aviation industry. So really cool, and he just started that up, I think, in the last month or so, a couple of months. So it was awesome to sit down and get to talk with Vaca, as always. And, go check that podcast out. Like I said, it's really good. And we spent maybe the last 10 to 15 minutes talking about the opening night and that game. That was, I think, the day before or after that opening night game. I guess it was the day after. because we talked about, what had happened. So, again, also, some of my thoughts on that game on that podcast over there. So I won't touch on the Ravens game as much. I am working on the film reviews and getting those out, and hopefully we'll have those out week to week for you guys, as that seems to be what is popular over here on my channel. I do really enjoy the film reviews. So anyways, enough of that to the side now. And that'll be on the YouTube channel, of course. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, that'll be over on the YouTube channel with film reviews and all that good stuff. So, getting back to this game now. I guess we're gonna go over the fights as well, UFC Noche, that happened last weekend. I will also touch on that as well. So throughout this episode, so getting all that out of the way, kind of filling you in for what you're in store for in this podcast. Let's jump into the stats and really just about this game against the Falcons. So Patrick Mahomes, another interesting day at the office, 217 yards off 26 completions, 39 attempts. That was good for 5.6 yards per average attempt. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. His longest was 27 yards, 87.2 ratage. And then we got Kirk Cousins, 20 for 29, pretty efficient with the ball for the most part, other than the interception. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 230 yards. He did take 2 sacks. So Kirk Cousins, I feel like one of the big things for the Chiefs, especially in the second half, and kind of what I said at halftime, was if that pass rush starts getting to Kirk Cousins, which it really did in the second half, and towards the end of the first half, seemed like the Chiefs were starting to really pick up steam. I wasn't too worried about the defense. They allowed 3 points in the second half, and I'm going off the dome here, so I don't know what week 1 and 2, what the splits were like between scoring in the first half versus the second. That was kind of a theme with the Chiefs defense last year, was you better score as much as you can early on the Chiefs, because by the second half, they were shut down in the second half, especially on the playoff run. I think they held Baltimore to nothing in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. But holding Atlanta, nonetheless, on Sunday Night Football to 3 points in the second half, I think is huge for this defense, and to kind of start to get that identity back and, rely on the defense. I mean, you lost L'Jarius Sneed. There was a lot of guys that you were able to keep. Lost Willie Gay. Jaden Hicks was added, who I think is a great addition to this defensive roster. FAU had a big play in there tonight, where he had a pressure. I think it was just a pressure, a QB hit, but he got a free run at Kirk Cousins at one point. So Turk Wharton is having one hell of a season, I think, right now. And the rotation that they've got at defensive line, I think, really works well to mix in Turk, Big Mike Pennell in there on rundowns a lot of times. Chris Jones, of course. Still have Derek Nottie. Who else am I missing? On the edge, Mike Dana, George Karlaftis. Obviously, we don't know when Omenihu will be back at this point, I don't think. At some point, probably midway through the season, I would assume, with the injury he sustained last year. But getting into the rushing stats, Carson Steele was awesome. 17 carries, 72 yards. 9-yard carry was his longest of the night. Samaje Perine came in and helped, had some relief. He didn't really do anything in the second half. 6 carries, 25 yards. I feel like he just kind of helped balance things out and prove that he can run the ball pretty well too. He had a 9-yard carry as well. That was his longest. Both Steele and Perine both had a 4.2 yards per carry, which is pretty good. And I think for what the Chiefs want to do with the run game, I mean, these long, drawn-out runs, I talked about it on that stream at halftime. The first 2 drives of the game, 17 plays, ended up in a pick. It happens. 13 plays and a touchdown on the next drive. 30 plays were ran. And the Chiefs controlled the tempo of the game. They were able to just control the game. It seemed like they were going to third down every single time and converting, and that was good to see. Had a huge play by Matt Ariza at one point where he jumped up and saved a huge, what would have been a terrible play. And James Winchester, I feel like he had one amazing play to balance out that bad snap on the punt there that Ariza saved and almost got a fumble right there, which, I don't know. Those rules are so tricky, I think, at this point, because the forearm was down, and so it's signal to a down player. But my thought is, I mean, if he wouldn't have fumbled the ball there and would have bounced right back up, would they have called him down in that situation? And they may have. It's one of those plays I feel like you don't see a ton in football, and so you see guys keeping themselves up, but if that arm goes down to the ground, is that a tackle at that moment? I feel like it's kind of like the conversation of the push play where you can get stopped and then push your guys forward and still end up converting on whatever short yardage situation that you're trying to convert on. But there was one play on a kick return last year that I just thought leapt out at me because it was a fumble. But they called forward progress. They called the play dead. But, so these nuanced situations, I don't know, and within the game of football, I think are just interesting and good conversations to have just because, what are we constituting as down? Feels like any time that a player is down, it benefits the offensive side of the ball. And me being a defensive side, defensive guy and my brain working more defensively than offensively, I feel. I don't know. Let them guys cause turnovers, wreak havoc. So it's kind of my thought. But nonetheless, a great save by Matt Ariza, and I think a really big play in this game. Rashee Rice had a couple of drops. Felt like one was more Mahomes' fault. One was kind of his fault early in the game. We didn't see a ton of Xavier Worthy tonight. A lot of his was early in the game. Juju Smith-Schuster had a big touchdown, of course, as he caught two that were thrown to him for 17 yards and a touchdown. Rashee Rice, though, 14 targets, 12 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown. 9.2 yards per reception in this game. The way they use Rashee Rice, I mean, is just to keep the offense going. I feel like they just really treat him. And shout out to Ray. We were kind of talking about this, and he brought this up, that they treat Rashee Rice as almost the run game. And I feel like at times they kind of do. And before it was Kelsey. I feel like, and Kelsey, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people talking about that. I feel like that was kind of the sentiment that Chris Collinsworth had going off air was, okay, now we've seen 3 games, and Kelsey really hasn't done much. He was targeted 5 times. He got 4 of them for 30 yards. And, I talked about this leading into the season. I mean, it's normal. Like, Kelsey's going to start slowing down. And I wasn't 100% sold that last year we saw him slow down as much as it was the injury. But I think the injury may have worked to a catalyst to somewhat kind of slow Kelsey down a little bit. And that's okay, especially in this offense. I feel like the Chiefs have been thinking about this, preparing for this, and getting ready for the situation where, already in rotations you saw, I feel like the last couple of years, snap counts go down for Kelsey. They're working to work other guys in, get guys ready to take his place at some point. But I think he still serves very well in this offense. And Patrick Mahomes mentioned after the game, he's still, very much respected by defenses, and they, have had plenty of plays. I mean, just like the interception in the Baltimore game, that was Mahomes trying to force one to Kelsey. He was trying to get him involved. And if that's not what they can do with this offense, at this point in time at least, maybe later on in the year, once they work some other things in and defenses start shifting around to, try to cover Rashee Rice better or, whatever it may be. But as for right now, I mean, Kelsey's kind of a decoy out there. And, I mean, it is what it is. It happens. There was a couple of plays. There was one route that they really pointed out. Kelsey got some good separation. Mahomes took the check down before he really saw Kelsey, make that play. But then I think that's another conversation to be had. How much are you looking at Kelsey? How much are you trying to force the ball to him? Let's just let it come natural. But at the same time, then you miss some moments like that from Kelsey where he, broke away, got some good separation. Could have been an easy 20 to 30 yard gainer on kind of a post kind of play out route. So I don't know. We'll see. Jury's still out for me on Kelsey. I don't know if he's officially slowed down, maybe lost a lost a tire along the way or something. We'll see. I think time will tell with the season going on, because that's one thing this year. I mean, I feel like what I've seen from the fans to even the media, and different talking heads, like, we got to relax. We are 3 weeks in. We got to relax. This was me all season last year. I feel like I was just trying to relax. I got a little nervous there towards the end. I think after the Raiders game, we all kind of collectively thought, is this team even going to win the division this year? Let alone go win a Super Bowl? And then the team that played in the playoffs versus the team that was playing, I don't know, the first 15 to 16 weeks of last season, two completely different teams. So, I don't know. When it comes to the Chiefs, I feel like, and they're still winning. They're 3-0. I mean, what are we complaining about too much, right? I mean, it's kind of my thought process at this point. We are still winning. The Chiefs are still winning games and making some big-time mistakes. I mean, whatever the parameters were, I saw a thing with the Bengals game last week that the Chiefs are the first team to ever win, where I think they turned the ball over three or more times, under 250 or 300 yards of offense. It's like a piled up list of stats, a little parlay, if you will. But the Chiefs were the first team, and it was like 1 in 250 or something like that. The Bengals game was a crazy game. I thought definitely gonna need more out of this team, though. Definitely gonna need more, and I think they'll get there. I mean, that's really my sentiment. Is like every team is like just now starting. You build towards the playoffs, and I think Chiefs Kingdom, I feel like we can attest to that pretty well, just seeing how these teams, the team that is out there week 1 is drastically different than the team that is out there week 15, 16, 17, 18 in the playoffs. I think the team that starts out in the wild card game is different once they get to the Super Bowl. More heightened and better elevated version of that team. But, we don't even know the identity of any team in the NFL right now and who's actually good and who's not, because, I don't know what the hell is going on right now. You had the Ravens lose to the Raiders last week and then come in and smash the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys made a nice little run to try to even that out, and I think the Cowboys are 0-3 now. I mean, that's some weird stuff going on. The Bucs look like they might be pretty good. Seahawks had a crazy game against a crazy good game, I should say, against the Dolphins, which obviously Tua out. That's tough, but the NFL's weird this year, guys. The NFL is weird this year. So I don't know. This game, what I take out of it against the Falcons, this team still has the resiliency to move forward. They don't let the mistakes affect them or, change what they're doing, play in, play out. Carson Steele was what a find, because he is just another Pacheco, essentially. And look at him tonight. He right into the role. He was fine. There was no issues. And I think him and Samaje Perine is a decent combo. Now, I don't know if Keontae Ingram actually got any playing time or any snaps, at least offensively. I didn't think I saw him out there. But I'll check that later on. But so we didn't see Ingram really get involved in anything. I think Carson Steele and Samaje Perine is just fine, personally. I think that looked pretty good. Carson Steele, so I don't go over the rushing totals, I don't think. Maybe. Yeah, I did. 17 for 72. Solid. That's what the Chiefs needed. They controlled the game. Drake London, who had a big game, 9 targets, 6 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. Darnell Mooney caught all 8 of his targets, 66 yards. Kyle Pitts had a big game, 2 catches for 59 yards. Shout out to all my Kyle Pitts fantasy managers, because, man, it's not easy having Kyle Pitts on your fantasy team always. Nick Bolton did go down. He ended up coming back. Shamari Connor had an amazing game. 10 tackles. Had the interception. Turned around. Handed the ball off to, I think it was Jalen Watson. A couple passes defended in there. Shamari Connor's everywhere. And reason why I, picked him out, it seemed like every time I was kind of watching film, especially in the playoffs, it's like, all right, who is this 27 kid? Because, who is Chamari Connor? I felt like I heard his name throughout the postseason, but it was really when I got to the film. It's like I'm watching film for, I think it was the Leo Chanel one, where I was really going over certain games for Leo Chanel. And it seemed like every time I looked around, it was like, man, it's 27 guy. What's he doing over here? And led me to make that video. And I definitely thought, Chamari Connor was going to have a big impact on this defense this year. And, he absolutely has. The dude is everywhere. He can tackle well. And he had a big night in Atlanta. FAU did end up with a sack and a forced fumble. He was Turk. Turk was the one with the interception. So FAU the fumble, and then Turk was the one that got the hand on Kirk Cousins to cause the interception that Chamari Connor ended up getting. And I don't even see the stat for fumble recovery. A couple tackle for the losses. Mike Pennell and FAU getting in there for a couple of tackles for loss. It's lost in my brain somewhere. Sack for Big Mike Pennell. George Karlaftis, Najee Johnson also got a couple of tackle for losses. Now, until tonight, I didn't feel like I had seen enough out of Najee Johnson. And between him and Tranquil, they had the big blunder on the coverage on the first Drake London touchdown. And there's a couple plays that I feel like really kind of showed why he's out there. There was a big tackle that he got. I think it was a tackle for loss. I just mentioned that, he just absolutely stood up. I think it was Bijan Robinson right at the line, pushed him back. It was great. And, just goes back to Spags and what he wants out of his secondary is to be able to tackle. And I think that's a great way to go out and, get some really good DBs that can tackle really well, and nobody's going anywhere. Looking at some of the snap counts, Kingsley Sumatia did get out there for 2, and I didn't see exactly where. Kelsey was at 57. So it was about almost 20 plays that he wasn't out there for. 74 total snaps on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive snap counts, Jaden Hicks got in there on 3. Jack Cochran got in on 6. He came in, of course, for Nick Bolton while he was hurt. Derek Nottie just 9. Mike Pennell 13. Did have an impact on the game, as well as FAU with 14. Leo Chanel just 14 snaps. McDuffie took the most at 61. Chamari Connor in at 50 snaps in this game. I want to see the time of possession. So the Falcons really, I think, did a number on kind of coming back in the time of possession, because there was one point it was like, I want to say it was like 20 or 32 minutes to like 15. So I think the Falcons really controlled that final quarter. It shapes out to be 34 minutes and 57 seconds of possession time for the Chiefs versus 25 minutes and 3 seconds for the Atlanta Falcons. I think that's pretty much it. 61 penalty yards from the Chiefs, 44 for the Falcons, but penalties have been an issue for the Chiefs. There were some weird calls in this game, but I feel like that's about every NFL game at this point. I feel like the refs are they're just not consistent. And I've talked about it multiple times on my podcast and, whatnot, but the officiating just isn't consistent. That's the issue. That's the biggest issue. So, all in all, don't feel great after this win. Don't feel bad. Chiefs doing Chief things early in the season, making us all sweat this game. But the Falcons are good. I think the Falcons are good. I think the Falcons will figure it out and maybe be a playoff team. I honestly think that. After tonight and kind of, I mentioned on the halftime live stream of just a team I've kind of kept up with just because of fantasy football, that I've had a number of their offensive guys, Kyle Pitts, as I mentioned, Drake London, was a rookie of the year. We started our dynasty league, and I drafted him. Well, so Cordell Patterson, as I said, while he was going through that. I think I had Algier for a minute. Anyway, so keeping up with that team, I feel like it's felt like they were kind of a quarterback away from being like a team that can contend to make the playoffs. And, the defensive guys they've picked up. I mean, Justin Simmons, does he know how to play Patrick Mahomes? 6 career interceptions, 4 straight games against Patrick Mahomes. He has picked him off. Jesse Bates also signed there last year. And Jesse Bates, of course, we know him from the Cincinnati Bengals. Justin Simmons from the Denver Broncos. So very common opponents that I feel like play pretty well against Patrick Mahomes already. Oh, and then you add Matthew Judon that they picked up. I feel like Kirk Cousins at quarterback is what they've done for the whole entire team. They've kind of revamped that team to, kind of bridge, until they kind of rebuild, if that makes sense, and kind of bridge over to, what are they going to do to fill in these cracks later? We'll get it figured out. But right now, they could probably compete with what they have. I think their defense is sneaky good. And I think all around, they're pretty sneaky good. I feel like if they can keep the pressure off Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins cannot scramble at all. I think that already I don't think he was great scrambling and getting outside of the pocket. But I think after the Achilles, that might be like really what, all right, man, we gotta protect Kirk Cousins and give him time to throw, create some, quick plays. I think they got a chance to be a pretty good team. And the NFC, I don't think is great. So, I think that the Falcons could be a playoff team if they're able to put it together. I think their ceiling is definitely maybe reaching the divisional round. And that's their ceiling. Their floor is they're going to be pretty bad. But 1-2 right now, I don't think. With the rest of that division, I don't know who the Bucs are. The Panthers, I guess I don't know what the hell's going on with them either now with Andy Dalton stepping in. He had a good game. And then the Saints. Another weird one. They scored 90 points in the first 2 weeks, and it's like they can't do anything against Philly. That was a weird game, too. Weird day. NFL's been weird this year. That's what I'm going to title this podcast. Weird. It's been a weird year. Weird. So going on, I'll talk about Mizzou real quick for a second. Mizzou gets a close win. I haven't been able to watch the last 2 games, just because I don't know. I think I got to have ESPN to watch them or something. Whatever. Kept up with it, through stats and stuff. So, I didn't watch the game, so I don't really know what happened. But obviously pushed to overtime against Vanderbilt. Won by 3 in double overtime. I think 30-27 was the final score. They do fall out of the top 10. And I didn't see exactly what ranking that they went to, which, whatever. The poll system is all terrible. I would assume they didn't drop below 12. I'm just going to assume that because they were ranked 7 going into that game. And I think I'm not 100% sure how the bracket works because I think some conferences have an automatic bid, but that would probably be teams that were up in the top 12 anyways. From the conferences they're going to get a bid, so I think right now they're sitting good. But, Mizzou hasn't played great necessarily, and, Vanderbilt pushing them to double overtime. That needs to be shaped up, but we'll see. So, but I just want to talk about Mizzou for a minute, kind of update on that. We kind of started the season talking about that, and me being absent the last couple of weeks, I haven't really got to talk about that, obviously. So I want to go over to the Bengals game real quick, just for a minute, and touch on mainly the calls, I guess, which I kind of hate to even breathe life into it at this point, but, it's all rigged for the Chiefs, obviously. So there was a play that I just wanted to talk about on the podcast where Jamar Chase pulls Trent McDuffie to the ground. He tackles Trent McDuffie and gets a defensive pass interference on Trent McDuffie. Now, I had a conversation on Twitter, kind of a back and forth with a Bengals fan who felt like it was defensive pass interference. Now, this is where I would say I kind of agree. If you want to go illegal contact, they were past 5 yards. And if you don't know the call that I'm talking about, set up a field goal for the Bengals. It was in the second quarter. And obviously live, being in the crowd, I didn't know anything of it until they showed the replay on the video board. And as many times as I've watched it, still feel like it's obvious OPI. I mean, you cannot just tackle the DB, right? I mean, I don't know. The optics of it were weird to me, I feel like. And live, though, I mean, in that moment, I don't blame the call. But, like, the conversation about it that we're having now, I feel like it's a very clear OPI. And even illegal contact, I mean, they were hand fighting. And usually if both guys are actively hand fighting, I mean, the refs, to a point, there's obviously a line, but they let it kind of go on. As long as you're just not holding the guy's hands to where he can't actually catch the ball. Jamar Chase didn't even try to catch the ball. Immediately grabbed Trent McDuffie by about the collar area and yanked him down to the ground. I don't know. It was a weird play. But with all the discourse over the final DPI, that was, it was a pretty obvious defensive pass interference. I don't know what way you want to slice it, but I mean, you can't just come up on a receiver and work your way through the receiver to the ball. That's not how that works. And one of the calls, I feel like that's why tonight, in the Sunday Night Football game against Atlanta, I feel like I didn't like the call, but I could understand where the referee was kind of coming from because it was on McDuffie, and I can't remember if it was a holding, DPI, what the call was exactly, or even illegal contact, but he, and I can't remember, I think we're going to go with Ray McLeod, so I think that's who it was, engaged with McDuffie. They both pushed each other at the line, and then once they kind of got up the field, McDuffie was right in front of him, and like kind of when they disengaged was when the ball was thrown by Cousins, soared right over him, easy incompletion. I mean, it was 10 yards away from the guy, it felt like. But technically, McDuffie impeded his route. And although Ray McLeod, I don't believe was actually, I mean, obviously maybe he was running that route at that point in time, but it just didn't feel like he was putting an emphasis to maneuver to get around and, whatever. Maybe that's just my eyes, and that wasn't the case, but I got where the ref was coming from because he was impeding him on where he was going. Ray McLeod was trying to get straight. McDuffie kept him from going straight up the field. And I think they were past 5 yards at that point. Flag is thrown. This is what it is. You can't impede the route of the receiver the way that the Bengals DB did in that game. It's pretty obvious DPI, and I mean, it is what it is. Don't make dumb mistakes at the end of the game. That game felt like whatever the Chiefs can do dumb, we can do dumber. And it's felt like that's exactly what happened in that game. The temper tantrum from Jamar Chase was absolutely insane. Watching it live was even crazier just because I was kind of shocked that's what was going on. And on what was, a clean tackle, and there's been rumors around what Chase thought, or, I think it was the hip drop thing was what they were looking for. And Jamar Chase causes a 15-yard penalty, dumb penalty at the end of the game. Penalties cost the Bengals. You can't get in those situations where they cost you the game because the Bengals did not look good in that game. The Ravens and the Bengals, I feel like, had the same problem with the Chiefs where they could not put a drive together. And therefore, the end of the game, I felt like I just never felt too worried or concerned with the Ravens or the Bengals because in the biggest moments, they didn't do anything. When they really needed to, they couldn't put it together. Sure, there's these, one-off plays that they break big and, break coverage or something like that. I mean, the Falcons tonight, I feel like they put together drives. The Falcons worried me more than I think the Bengals or the Ravens did, at least at the end of the game. I won't say at any point in the game because, the Ravens' first drive marched right down the field for a touchdown. They didn't put another drive together all night. They had one botched play by the defense that scored, and that was it. The Bengals kind of had those plays too. And I feel like that sentiment that the Bengals just outplayed the Chiefs. I mean, yes and no, because I do think that they outplayed them, like, performance-wise for the most part. I mean, but when it comes down to, consistently moving the ball, I feel like even the Chiefs were pretty consistently moving the ball. They made a bunch of dumb mistakes, with the turnovers. And I want to say it was like four turnovers in that game for the Chiefs. Might have been 5. Was there 2 fumbles? Or no, 4. I think it was 3 or 4 then, because I know 2 picks, the Carson Steele fumble. I don't know. It's, it's difficult when you start making those big mistakes like that, and that makes it hard on you. But that doesn't mean that I feel like the other team is really outplaying you necessarily. I think both of those games, to me, from my eyes, my biased eyes, that the Chiefs outplayed both of those teams. They just couldn't get out of their own way in either one of those games. And that's kind of where we were last year, right? I feel like that's where we were last year until we got to the playoffs. It seemed like the Chiefs just kept beating themselves over and over. And there's these games throughout this run that seems like just absolutely. The Colts game a couple years back. The Raiders game last year, Christmas Day. I mean, there's some tough games. The Broncos game. That one was rough. The Eagles game last year. I mean, there's plenty of examples last year of them just absolutely shooting themselves in the foot and losing the game. So I think that the Chiefs have to really be careful, and at least at this point, that is nowhere near the identity of the Kansas City Chiefs because they're 3-0. They're still winning. They're kind of making the same mistakes that they did last year, but they're still winning. So, I don't know. We'll see. All right, moving on. UFC 306, UFC Noche in the Sphere. Absolutely spectacular setup. The Sphere was awesome. Watching that card was absolutely amazing. And there was first couple of fights I didn't really know either one of the any of the guys that were fighting, but they both, I feel like, delivered, put on crazy shows. Arnaldo Rodriguez with a big win, Esteban Ribovics with a big win, Diego Lopez. That was a crazy fight with Brian Ortega. I mean, he came out and basically knocked him out in the first 30 seconds when he dropped Ortega. I saw a little clip of that where that right hand knocked him out, that left hand brought him back. And I do think that's exactly what happened. As Ortega was falling, Lopez hits him with another left hook, and you see it on his face. He's out, and then he's up, and he's awake. Recovered, went the distance with Diego Lopez. I commend Brian Ortega. No big injuries or anything. I saw a little video that he took sometime this last week that he's good. Nothing broken, nothing torn, so that's good. We'll probably see Brian Ortega hopefully back in the octagon soon. And hopefully he can kind of turn it around, because I feel like he's kind of gotten to a point where, Ortega just is not the same guy he was on the come up, right? Max Holloway, I think, took a lot out of him. I think the Volk fight took more out of him just because, he probably felt like he had it. He probably felt like he had it won with that guillotine. I don't know how Volk got out of that to this day, but, it's tough. Co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko with the victory over Alexa Grasso. I did not expect that whatsoever. And it felt like Grasso just it was like the Leon Edwards fight where, it's like he just didn't do anything the whole fight. Just stuck in the mud the entire fight. And that's something that's so tough. And so tough from the psychology side of a fighter, of just not being able to pull the trigger. And that's kind of what it felt like. Both of those fights kind of felt like that. Just not being able to pull the trigger with Grasso or Edwards. It felt like. And then the big one, Merab Dvalishvili with a huge win. Big Merab guy over here. I love what he's done with social media over the last year, so it's been fun to watch. I think him, trying to propel himself into this matchup, and, exactly kind of what I expected. I expected Merab to absolutely dominate Sean O'Malley and manhandle him pretty much with the wrestling, and it was dominant, it wasn't as dominant as it could have been. I don't think that Dwavasheli took too many big risks and was kind of more content just jawing back and forth with O'Malley in his corner. And see, okay, so Michael Bisping talked about this with Anthony Smith. And they didn't like Herb Dean getting in the middle of Dwavasheli and Tim Welch, who was the corner man of Sean O'Malley, of course. And so this one I didn't understand from their side. And the reason I say that is because it's not legal for you to necessarily talk to, like, your cornerman or your cornerman. Obviously, this is a UFC event. Everybody's going to be shouting out. You can't really police stuff like this as well as you could on, like, a local event or something like that. Something that happened to me during my amateur fight where my coach was the ring announcer. So he was kind of coaching me. There was one point in the fight where I had the guy on the ground and I was in top position, and my coach is directly giving me instructions, and the ref turns and tells my coach, are you the ring announcer or are you his coach? So, you have to get it cleared to be a cornerman with the commission and, go through the proper steps and whatnot. So I didn't understand Bisping and Smith's. I get it, Dwavasheli should just pay attention to his fight. If he wants to pay attention to Welch, then go ahead. But, there was some weird stuff between Aljo and Tim Welch as well when they fought. And kind of, I think what they said was they were basically trying to give instruction to Aljo. And, there's a lot going on. But I feel like you should also be able to distinguish your coach's voice with another coach's voice, especially when your coach is Ray Longo. But it's also illegal. So insert Dana clip here. It's illegal. And I don't understand the thought process, I guess, of just, let it go. Now, was Herb Dean over-reffing this fight? Absolutely. It was atrocious, really. I thought it was really bad. He kept telling Merab to work. Merab was in top position, punching Sean O'Malley, telling him to work. My guy, he is working. He is currently kicking this man's tail. Let the man work. Stop telling him to work. He's working. That's terrible. Sean O'Malley did come out with a Hail Mary at the end. Had a big teep to the body that initially I didn't think it actually hurt Merab. But the more you went on, it was obviously that it hurt him. And he was hurt. He got hit to the body really, really good on a teep. And the first one, I thought he was just messing with him. I mean, Merab was full of antics the entire fight. And I didn't think, I just didn't think he was rocked at first. But after that second one and going for the takedowns over and over after he had a failed one or two. But Sean O'Malley went out like a warrior, I will say. And I'm not necessarily an O'Malley detractor. I'm not like, it's not my guy, I guess. But I do like O'Malley. And I think that he can be some kind of star. I don't think that he's the superstar that he thinks he is, or even the UFC maybe thinks he is, but I do think he is a star in the sport. That being said, I am nervous and I've seen this put out because he said multiple things. He's not going to fight for a year. Fine, go rest up. Had an active title run. This is his second title defense already, and I mean, I think he won the belt this year, I do believe. So to fight 3 times in a year, hey, solid. Go rest up. He deserves it. But the tweets where like it's a troll, I get it. I completely get it. But there is a line where accountability lies on one side and the troll act lies on the other side. And I just hope in his personal time, when he looks at the man in the mirror, he is honest with himself. Hey, we lost that fight. And that is okay. Merab was the better man that night because you can still be great while taking a loss here and there to guys that are great. Merab is an amazing wrestler, and he's a smart fighter. And he's tough as nails. I mean, the Marlon Moraes fight, absolutely insane. So I'm I don't know. I'm interested to see how all of this works out. I think Umar Nurmagomedov is next for Merab Dvalishvili. Man, I tried to be slick with that. I tried to with Merab Dvalishvili. But anyways, I think that's what's next. And what's next for the UFC will be Fight Night Moicano versus Saint Denis. Imavov returns against Brendan Allen. Other than that, honestly, this card, I'm not too familiar with anyone that is on the main card. I'll probably try to watch it next weekend, though. See what time the Mizzou game is and everything. I feel like I have rambled on quite enough at this point. I feel like I could ramble on quite a bit more, but we will save that. Again, let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed the live stream or if you even caught it. Go back, maybe check it out. I think that is going to be my plan, is to start live streaming a little bit more, get more engaged with you, the subscriber, or whoever is watching this. If you're not subscribed, smash that subscribe button. We were on the journey for 300 by opening night. We didn't quite hit it and kind of fell off for a couple of weeks. So we still are on the road to 300 subscribers. So if you are watching on YouTube, smash that subscribe button, smash that like button. Helps with the algorithm. I really do appreciate that. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, smash that dislike button. Comment, let me know why I'm crazy or whatever take that you did not enjoy during this episode. If you are not on YouTube, go over to the Papa Shiro YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button, smash that bell icon to make sure that you are aware whenever I drop something, as there will be more film reviews coming up in the very near future on the channel. I am planning to kind of maybe get back into some gaming content, kind of see how that goes. I got some plans, we'll say, of just don't know the exact timeline. So kind of shut that down for now, but we'll see what we get into on the gaming side of things. And with that, again, I appreciate if you listen to the entire episode and you're still here. And until next time, go Chiefs.